let's say a 25 young guy comes up to you and says, Rahul, I want a portfolio for the next whatever 20, 30, 40 years of
Ooh.
10. Yeah, let's take out the sell side, hat for a minute and talk about conviction. What they say in the markets, that I'm sure that you've had a lot of that. What would be, whatever, top 5, top 10, 3, whatever number of, I think, your real high conviction bets in India as far as stocks are concerned?
On a lighter note, Anupam, I don't think even a fund manager has that kind of view. I'd be surprised if they have a 6-month view. And but that's on a lighter
being
note.
very candid. As you know, I don't think fund managers talk like that.
No, that's all right. I think like I said, it's best to be a straight shooter, and I don't blame them. I think if you look at the fund management industry today, I think there is a very large portion of their CTC that is locked into their own funds. So the pressure on performance is extremely high. So if that means you have to churn, you have to churn. You basically have to beat the benchmark. You have to give the returns. I don't think anyone in India takes a 20-year call. If you're taking a 20-year call, then it's very simple. You just keep buying, the same thing that our parents bought you. Buy HDFC Bank, TCS, Hindustan Lever.
Chalo, 1 year, chalo. Let's go for something easier.
So, like I said, Anupam, earlier in our chat, I think there are businesses that are emerging. Right? Now, can those disruptors themselves be disrupted is the call to take. And if not, then how big can these entities potentially become? Right? In some cases, there are businesses that exist that could become another version of themselves. And I go back to a CFA conference that we had sponsored a few years back, and Rukshat Shroff of JP Morgan, he's obviously now retired from there. Somebody asked him a question as to which is the next HDFC Bank, and he said HDFC Bank is the next HDFC Bank. And that line became fairly popular. And that holds true for so many companies in India, that company can potentially be the next company because the size. So let me give you a case in point, Anupam. No consumer discretionary company in India, whether you look at hotels, multiplexes, QSR, footwear, none of these has even $1 billion of top line. None of them.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I mean, no hotel company, no multiplex company, no QSR company, no footwear company, no value retail company.
You're talking about revenues?
Absolutely. None of them have even $1 billion of top line. A Bata, Jubilant, Foodworks, Indian Hotels, none of them.
And Surf became a $1 billion revenue brand some time ago.
That's obviously a part of a much larger entity which has a 60,000 crore. Exactly.
That's the dichotomy.
Exactly. So I think that the room to grow is immense in India, right? And I look at those kind of stories that could become really, really big.
Sure.
Yeah. So, one of my pet stocks that I really like, and, I am an occasional consumer, is McDonald's, right? I think I love what they've done with the business here. The fact that they're only present in half of India and their metrics are still better than a lot of their competitors that are present in all of India is quite remarkable. I think this can potentially end up becoming...
listed stock is Westlife.
Westlife Food World, yeah. Okay, they're only at about 350 stores in West and South. I mean, this number could be anything just in West and South. We're sitting in Khar right now. Are you aware that BKC, which is just across the bridge from us, doesn't have a single McDonald's? They had one and it was shut down.
Yeah, and it shut down.
So just imagine the scope that there is to come up with something like that. I think that looks like one interesting long-term theme to us. I think if you look at chemicals again as a theme, I think a lot of what's happening in chemicals, Anupam, is fluorination. I think a lot of companies are going into fluorine. And I think SRF could be a very, very interesting name there. Okay. I think, basis our numbers over the next 2-3 years, we think earnings and operating profit could compound at somewhere between 20 to 25%. Nice. It's an industry leader coming to you at fairly inexpensive valuations. On our numbers at about 21 times, on I'd say average of 24, 25. If I roll over to 25, it'll look even cheaper in its entirety. I think that looks like, one interesting name.
Sure.
If you do have the return of Bollywood, which is something that everyone's been waiting for, then there is only one name to play, which is PVR. That could be a very good name to play structurally. If you do have, of course, there are challenges on content. Through COVID, OTT has emerged with very strong content. Last year was pretty much dependent on South India and South Indian content. So I think, unfortunately for Bollywood, nothing from Akshay Kumar to Amitabh Bachchan is working at the box office. Yeah, and I think if that revives, then you could have that being a fairly interesting theme. We were talking about roads a little earlier. You could look at a name like PNC Construction. I think basically anywhere where you have order book to bill ratios in these companies which are 2.5 to 3x, where cash flows are decent, balance sheets are not too over leveraged, and you've not heard anything hanky panky on the promoter, because governance is a very, very important part of these businesses. I think that could be potentially an interesting name. And like I said, I think insurance is a space that I really, really like. I mean, you can pretty much throw a dart. I think all four are equally good. I think HDFC Life has done really well. Max Life, SBI Life, ICICI Prudential Life. I mean, you could go into any of them. So these are just certain names that are sort of coming up in my mind right now. Like we said, India is still very agricultural dependent. You could look at some agro commodities plays as well, like a Sumitomo Chemicals or a PI Industries. I mean, we could literally make a portfolio. Now, to the youngster, if Zomato and Paytm can become much bigger than they are today, or a Nykaa, there is going to be competitive intensity. You have RBI coming in with their digital currencies. You have India that's just on a UPI, an agreement with Singapore. You have Reliance talking about getting into the beauty and wellness space. There is going to be increased competition, right? Wherever there is malai, the bigger ones are going to get in and try to take a piece of it, right? So I think the good part for a lot of these businesses, they have a very large moat in terms of being a first mover advantage and having built up their roster. Their consumers are with them. If the disruptors don't get disrupted, these guys could land up being anything 10, 15 years from now. The only thing, Anupam, from a capital market standpoint is since you mentioned taper tantrum, when liquidity is in withdrawal, people go back to looking at return on equity and capital employed. When things are good, then it's okay to talk, gross merchandise value, price to sales, road to profitability and all of that. But there are a lot of these new gen companies which will probably resonate a lot more with the youth. These could become huge businesses, according to me. But the caveat being that the disruptor does not get disrupted. But for the moment, I think there are enough and more opportunities available.
Yeah, so I'm going to just recap that for the listeners. There are 5 very clear ones that came in. The first was Westlife, okay, which is McDonald's. Second was SRF, Specialty Chemicals. Third was PNC Infra, right? Which is roads. That's 3. Fourth, Rahul said, I think was PVR, of course. Who wouldn't, PVR? How is Mr. Bijli doing? When you meet him, is he, really bullish down that COVID is over and stuff like that?
Extremely. Yeah. I think if you meet both Siddharth and him, Siddharth, of course, from Inox, Siddharth Jain, I think they're both extremely very bullish. The interesting part is that together they are both a minority shareholder in the entity. I think together they hold about 29%. I think one of the entities holds 15, 16, the other holds about 12, 13%. That's the only caveat. Can there be a bigger player that comes in and acquires them down the line? I don't know, but they sound extremely bullish.
It's a tough business.
It's a tough business. Content is not in your hand, right? I think
you're a distributor. So you're an exhibitor.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The fifth was any of the insurance listed players. I think there's HDFC Life, there's SBI Life, there is ICICI Lombard, there is maybe a few more. Those are the 5 very clear ones that Rahul said. I think agri commodity play. I mean, some like a PI Industries. That was the 6th one. And the 7th one, the most interesting one, of course, for those who have that, how's the Josh high, sir, kind of stuff.
Jigra, as you say.
Yeah. Punjabi, yeah. Are the Zomatos and the Nykaas and the Paytms. Yeah, if one of them 10 years later actually, I mean, it's zero or it's go for broke or it's like gone completely. If they make it, then I think they'll just be massive.
Yeah, because look at the stock prices, right, Anupam? Yeah. I think most of them are down to a 4th or a 5th of their life highs. That does not mean that they have to go back there. You mentioned a little earlier about real estate. I think the life high of DLF, if I'm not mistaken, was 1,400 rupees. And
that
happened
2008.
Exactly.
That?
Right. So it's not necessarily just because it's hit there, it needs to go back there. But can these stocks go up 2x, 3x? Maybe, but it doesn't mean that they have to go back to where they came from. But that itself sometimes, I think sometimes what happens, Anupam, is people get too caught up. I think, the WhatsApp generation gets too caught up. Kuch de do jo double ho jaye. That mindset needs to sort of go away. It's not going to be an easy market. It's going to be very challenging. And not just this year. I think every year is going to be very, very challenging from here on. Because like we discussed, Anupam, I don't think in our lifetime we're going to see a 5-year bull market ever again. It's going to test your blood pressure. It's going to test your stress levels. You've got to be very nimble-footed in terms of, how you approach the market. But there's going to be opportunity and more. One advice to your listeners, Anupam, you're never going to catch the top and the bottom in a stock. Even an institutional shareholder will always buy the stock like 15-20% off the bottom and sell after the stock is corrected 20%. There is no way. We are all human beings at the end of the day. The fund manager or anybody else is not, there is not any more. Obviously, they are more well informed because they're meeting managements and all of that. But at an aggregate level, the intellect level is the same across, right? The information is by and large the same. So it's not like anyone is God's gift to mankind and knows something that somebody else doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So I think to that extent, you need to be a little careful on the fact that you have to be nimble-footed and don't take a blanket call on, where you think things are going to go, either too much on the positive or too much on the negative. I think excesses on any side are bad.
Yeah.
Just play the moment, play the ball, as Dravid used to say.
Yeah.
Be in the moment.
Man, it's always good to have a sobered, grounded and a very, humble way of looking at markets long term. I think that's what age does to you, probably.
I don't know about age, but
Wisdom,
it's,
experience.
So I'll tell you, I think Anupam, there's been, just at a personal level, right? I lost my nani in 2016, and then I lost my dad in 2018. I practically lost myself last year. There have been experiences that humble you, that teach you that there is a much bigger life out there than beyond what our profession is. And if you permit me, I can actually tell you a shairi in Hindi. It's something that I live by. It's written by a shair who's by the name of Bashar. And recently I've even heard Gaur Gopal Das quote him in some of his sermons. It basically goes something like, उन्हें कामयाबी में सुकून नजर आई तो वो दौड़ते चले गए. उन्हें कामयाबी में सुकून नजर आई तो वो दौड़ते चले गए. हमें सुकून में कामयाबी नजर आई तो हम ठहर गए. जिंदगी की दौड़ में ऐ बशर तू क्या कर रहा है? इतना तो तू जी भी नहीं रहा जितना तू मर रहा है. So I think you need to be in the moment. You need to, always reflect on wherever you have come in life. I think everyone is at a particular position because they are meant to be there. Put in your hard work, do the best. Don't compete with other people. I always tell my team and my friends, just aim to be the best version of yourself. In a very paradoxical way, what Rancho says in Three Idiots, right? Strive for excellence. Success jhak maar ke piche aayegi. That was his exact dialogue in Three Idiots. And I think that's just the way to live life. I think aim to be the best version of yourself. Be compassionate. Don't think you're superior, especially in the stock market, to anyone. I think if you just keep the basics in place, without letting emotions sway you dramatically at either ends, you'll be fine. There's a lot to enjoy in life.
Man, how about that? I didn't expect that kind of wisdom to come at the end of the show, going into, with the sell side, with someone who's an institutional brokerage. But, okay. Thanks for those insights, man. They are useful. All jokes apart. And I'm really sorry to hear whatever you've been through in the last, and I really hope it's the end of everything that you've seen. These kind of things can
but you've got to take them smiling, as Russell Crowe said in the movie Gladiator. In the end, we're all shadows and dust. We're all gone in the long run, right? So when you ask for stocks in for 20-30 years, अगर कोई सुन रहा है तो हम शायद alive भी नहीं होंगे, वो हमें पकड़ भी नहीं सकेगा.